very interesting year for me, and I'm glad that I am living my best life and working towards being a better version of myself. That's the best way to summarize my year in a nutshell. Loads of experiences, but here I am, looking forward to another, but being grateful that I have this moment with each of you.
Absolutely. I say it's been very eventful for you too, from one program to the other. I think that you also have used the time very well, exploring new things. But we'll get to the details of that shortly. Dr. Hannibal Koroboto has also joined us on this episode of the podcast, public health professional and an expert medical scientific communicator. How would you describe 2022? Good to have you on this podcast again.
Thank you so much, Nifemi. I would say my year has been very beautiful. It has been a very intense year, I think. Just a lot of opportunities for growth and opportunities to stretch yourself, just unlock things, potentials that you didn't even know were, in you. So it was just that kind of year. I'm grateful for the opportunity for growth, the opportunity to explore new things, and of course, the opportunity to connect with people of like minds who are doing great things in different fields. So it was a very beautiful year indeed, very worthwhile.
Absolutely. I like the sound of that. Peter Aban Boyer, actor and film. What's your 2022 like?
Okay. This year has been one of the most interesting years of my life because I've had the highest highs and the lowest lows. It's been a very learning year for me because post-COVID and post this new age of whatever, there's been a lot of good times and bad times, which I've never experienced before. So it's been a year of growth and learning and really looking into myself to know that I can survive things because a lot of things have changed and we're now feeling the aftermath of post-COVID. So a lot of changes, both financial, physical, mental, and being also like a mentor to a lot of young people. I've noticed, I've encountered a lot of depression and a lot of things that people are going through and how it affects me mentally. So it's been a very trying year. And I just hope that next year is a better year for all of us. But it's been a great year because I've learned so much about myself and about other people too. So 2022 has been something.
Fantastic. Sounds like it's been a good year for you. All right, we have Benny Finisher. I saw Benny Finisher in a new light. I haven't seen him before, performing Menace a couple of days ago. Talk to us, Mr. Finisher. How's been the year for you?
You're muted.
Hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay. Just when say crazy,
it's not clear at all. Not clear at all. Can everybody else hear?
I can hardly hear you from here.
Am I the only person here? Yeah.
I hear static, but I think it's very...
Okay.
But whilst you're fixing your audio, can I just say something to what Peter had said earlier, where he talked about the concern for mental health and well-being, because I think that's a focal point for us these days. It's a topic that we haven't generally discussed, but for people to live their best lives, they must be in the right mental state. Otherwise, the quality of life is absolutely diminished. So I'm so glad that he brought up that point, because we need to talk about and think about what it means to be well and to be mentally well in order to participate in the process of living. So that was my thought. So Benny, are you back? Can we hear you this time? Can you try again?
Can you hear me now? How's it now? Can you hear me?
Can
Well,
you
it's
say
still
something again? Because yeah.
Okay. Is it from? How's it now? Can you hear me?
We're still struggling to hear you, or unless somebody else can hear you, then we can, can others hear him?
we can hardly hear you now. We might have to get back to Benny.
Okay, we lost him. Yeah, we've lost him.
Okay,
All
let's
right,
get to
so
the meat of it,
let's carry
people.
on until he comes back to join us, because it's
Absolutely.
live.
Indeed. All right, let's get to it. So the big question that comes to mind is, how do you live your best life? Particularly starting today. You probably hear people say, live your best life. I mean, a great advice. We all want to somehow feel connected to ourselves and others. We want to feel as if we're part of something important and also make a difference in our world. But the biggest fear I've always had as an individual is not just climbing the ladder, but ensuring that the ladder you're climbing isn't laid on the wrong wall. So you can be doing fantastically, doing something, but perhaps it's not even what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. So I'd like us to begin by establishing what it means to live our best life. What are we looking out for? What are the factors? What are the signs? What are the signposts to help you know exactly what the goal is when you consider living the best version of you? Who would like to start?
Yeah, Nifemi, I'm going to give this a go because I've always find this to be a fascinating topic, and depending on who you speak with and where they are in their life process, their responses vary. But I think in order to live your best life, it starts with you as an individual, loving yourself, accepting yourself, focusing on yourself, as well as connecting with others. We talked about mental health and physical health and all of that, because I think it's parcel of the whole thing. But I do think that you have to live in the moment, in the present. Very often people are so concerned with what is to come or what has come and gone, whereas they should be focused on the present, because the present is actually living. You are living in the present, not in the past, not in the future. So I think I personally live in the present, and I encourage people to live in the present, because from a state of presence and loving yourself and what you care about and doing what you love, then you can connect with other people, and that makes your life meaningful. Because at the end of the day, we're all looking for meaningful lives. You can't have a meaningful life if you don't have the basics for what it means to have a meaningful life. Oh, welcome back, Benny.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us again. Yeah. Did you want to tell us now about what 2022 means to you?
Can you hear me now? Loud and clear.
Well, try and let's see if we can hear you.
All right. Sorry, I had to sign out and back in. I hope you can hear now. Basically, the year has been great, and I'm grateful for that.
We're struggling again.
Okay.
Can you try speaking without? Oh, much better now. It's much clearer. Can you try speaking without turning on your video? Yeah. And let's see if it'll be clearer. So carry on.
Okay.
Thank you.
How is it now? You can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Clear.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Okay. So it's been a great year so far, and it's not over yet. So I still look forward to greater things happening in the year, and it was a great opportunity to see dreams more from paper to reality, more from my mind to reality, and also meeting new people, new friends, new experiences, and understanding how human beings behave, and and testing my own strength too, because oftentimes we think there's a particular way we want things to happen, and when it doesn't, sometimes we think it's either there's something we didn't get wrong, and oftentimes it's actually not from us, it's from the outside. We should try to give ourselves the props and say, hey, you're doing well, you've done so well so far. And as long as we don't compare our success with other people's successes, and enjoy every drop, not to wait till it's an ocean before you celebrate or you express your gratitude. So far, I'm grateful for all I've seen, experienced, had, and still having. So that's it. Thank you.
It's beautiful. Exactly what Dr. Ahmed just talked about, living in the present moment. It's usually very difficult for many because sometimes we are held back by the past or looking forward to the future, and we're finding it very difficult to enjoy life one day at a time. We are perhaps carrying the burden of the things we didn't get right, coming to where we are right now, and also under a lot of pressure to outdo ourselves and to be able to achieve a lot that we have on our plate for the future. Dr. Robert, I'd like you to speak to us about how we can live through our current reality, even though you are fully immersed in the kind of things that you're looking forward to, the dreams that have not yet been achieved, the plans that you have that don't seem to be adding up.
Oh, absolutely. Great points Dr. Omar raised, and also what Mr. Fincher has also talked about. I think that it's very important to understand that most of the time, the dots connect backwards. So first of all, sometimes things don't make sense, but when you leave that moment and proceed to the future, you then see that there was a purpose to everything. So the moment you are in now, there's a purpose to that. So rather than being consumed about the past or the present, why don't you focus on living that moment, learning what you should learn, taking the lessons out of it, becoming the person that you should be through the process and the events and the people that you have had the opportunity to meet, because it all makes sense. It all makes sense in the future. And like we said, the dots connect backwards. So in another 1 year, in another 2 years, in another 5 years, I say that's why I was there at that moment, to meet this person. That's why I had that experience to learn this. That's why I had this opportunity to grow myself into this, because again, if you don't learn the lessons that you need to learn now, in the future, you wish you had learned it, because it's required of you in the future. So again, very good points raised about being present in the moment, not taking that for granted, because there's a purpose for that particular point that you are in your life at that time.
I like the fact that everyone, while talking about how the year has been for them thus far, seem to have painted a good picture, which, however, isn't a true reflection of the realities of the year. There's been a huge inflation globally. As was on strike for 8 months in Nigeria, that's a lot of economic downturn for the country itself. There's the prices of commodities are on the hike. The unemployment rate is still at 33%. I'd like us to just speak to how we've been able to navigate through these realities and come to a place where we're so satisfied with the way the year is ending, which I think is also very much linked to what you're talking about, living the present and not being overwhelmed by the things that are happening around you and the things you've not been able to achieve. But speak to us, Mr. Boyo, how you think people can live through the reality of our times and also not lose their minds.
Okay. Well, I remember when I said I've experienced the highest highs and the lowest lows. So it's not all good and bad. But I think what's the most important word is to be realistic, because a lot of us, I include myself, are not realistic in living in the present. The past is gone. The future is not yet here, like everybody's saying. So we live in the present. But there's different, I don't know how to explain it now. Living your best life right now. There's so much outside influences. Like I was talking about mentoring young people, and I get phone calls. I was telling Dr. Amma a few days or weeks ago, I get phone calls at 2 a.m. in the morning, suicidal phone calls, and people in depression, and they want to take their lives, and they've not eaten for 2 days. And it affects me mentally a lot, because unless I'm not human, I have to be affected. Sometimes when you're calling someone, you don't know the state of mind of that person. So all those things affect me mentally, and it was beginning to weigh down on me. So trying to live my best life, I have to consciously be in a good mental state for me to be able to help someone. Like if you're on a plane, they say, put on your oxygen mask before you help someone else. Yes, but in today's world with the inflation, the way the world is changing, people's values, the government, whatever you want to call it, it's really very difficult to just pinpoint like a certain formula or way of living. We just take it one day at a time, and we have to be realistic. Realistic, being real, knowing what is happening today, what is happening in your life, being able to deal with it. I think that's the most important thing, being realistic and being able to deal with what is going on.
Absolutely. I think you made a very fantastic
Can I
point.
piggyback on that very quickly?
Just go ahead.
I was going to piggyback on what Peter just shared. I think that there has to be a level of resilience that people build. You have to build your resilience. There is absolutely no denial that it's been a trial for everyone globally. We're not immune to it. We're actually all experiencing it, because what happens in the US or in the Ukraine or Russia, name it, affects us as well, financially, politically, socially, all of that. But we have to build our resilience. And when you build your resilience, you can begin to understand that disruption occurs, but you can go beyond disruption. And when you go beyond disruption is when you begin to see the value in the lessons that you learn in that process. We tend to focus on too many things at once, as opposed to narrowing our focus. You know, you can't run before you walk. You have to crawl first. Everybody wants to achieve all these magnanimous things, but the reality is that you have to build slowly, small things at a time. So if you focus on those small things, it accumulates into something much, much bigger. I think Benny talked about putting things to reality, or moving from paper to, I can't remember the exact phrase you used. Yeah. My apologies. Yes. But here's the thing about reality. We tend to think of reality as when things are good, but reality is when things are good or bad or in between. Yeah, it is all part of our personal reality. My reality is different from yours, and yet there's some areas that might be similar, but it doesn't take away from what I am experiencing. And I think we need to perhaps shift from using the word reality to experience. What are you experiencing? Because it is that experience that helps you to connect with others, or for you to move forward in the things that you're doing in your life. So resilience is important, and enjoying the experiences of living, because there's a myriad of them, and being focused on what is important for you at that moment in time will help to relieve the undue stress that people are experiencing these days. But you know, it's part of the human experience, and we have to focus on that.
So, Benny, speak to us about your own experience because I remember you talking about how long you've been a performer, how your first show only your dad or your mom or your siblings were there. I'd like us to speak to doing the things that you love because nothing makes you happier than doing what you enjoy. But there comes a time where what you love to do isn't also fulfilling enough. It's not hitting the successful target that you desire. And that's where people give up on, their vision, they give up on their dream to just make ends meet. So perhaps you want to speak to us about that journey from where it was as if what you were doing wasn't as impactful. How do you hold on for so long, without giving up?
Well, thank you very much. I think, not think, I'm sure now, than I used to think, but it's really about understanding the purpose and the purpose for doing what you're doing. Oftentimes we allow the need for money or the need for material things to to restrain or to what's the word now, to stop us from reaching the our goals. Yeah, to stop us from because when you think about the environment and the things you need to get, what you need to get, especially in this part of the world, you might just want to give up. Because the first thing I ask myself is before I attempt anything, why are you doing it? And that why has to be strong enough to keep me going if the world is turning upside down. In 2020, during the COVID, during the pandemic, so many people actually gave up on their dreams. So many people ruled out so many things they wanted to do and all that. I just told myself, whatever happens, these dreams, these things I planned for 2020, it stays there. The only thing that is going to move is time. I'm not moving. As long as I'm still alive, this thing is going to happen. Many that you saw in a couple of days ago, I've been trying to do since 2019. I said, yeah, I'm going to do it in 2020. Then COVID said, hello, not today. Well, I said, well, if not today, it will happen tomorrow, but this is going to happen. So yeah, 2021 came, well, I tried. 2022 came, yeah, I did it, and I'm not done yet. So the question is, how strong are you going to hold on to that which you believe in? And even when everything, all factors is discouraging or pulling you down, do you still have the strength to keep on? Do you have a circle of friends or people that could tell you, hey, Superman, you need saving now, we are behind you. So it's from encouraging yourself, and when your strength is leaving you, make sure you have someone or few people that can say, hey, take some and keep going. So that's it. So that has been very helpful for the past decades. Yeah.
Inspiring and encouraging at the same time. There are two elements that I want us to explore within the time of this podcast, and they are our mental and physical fitness, which I believe it's very critical to recover the best version of ourselves. They kind of go hand in hand, and we must find time to love and care for both of these elements if we're going to live a happy life. So perhaps the doctor can help us. Let's begin with mental health. We've had a couple of discussions on this topic on this podcast, and there's been an increased awareness about it. But then it is still a very big challenge, improving your mood, managing your weight, lowering health issue risks, Physical and mental health just seem to go hand in hand. But how do you advise that people take a hold of their life moving into the new year, taking care of themselves, and ensuring that they perhaps just have a way to provide a balance between physical and mental health?
Oh, thank you so much, Nifemi. It's such a great question. Like you said, it's really important to take care of both our physical and mental health. And that's just because that's what we have to work with while we are right here on the surface of the earth. So if you're not of sound mind, you cannot be able to contribute meaningfully to your family, to your community, to do your job, or to just serve the purpose for which you are here on earth, right? And then if you don't also have a healthy body, you can't do any of these as well. I would start with the mental health. There are lots of things going on right now. We have mentioned the Ukraine-Russia war. We have talked about devaluation of currencies. We have talked about conflicts, insecurity challenges. All of these are triggers for some people to make them feel unsafe, not very comfortable, a lot of causes for worry and anxiety. And so there's, of course, mental health issues around depression, anxiety, OCDs, all sorts of things, right? But I think that if we own these things, there's something that Steve Covey talked about. He talked about circle of influence versus circle of concern. Many of these things fall around circle of concern, but you cannot do much about it. So one of the things I've done is to focus on my circle of influence. What can I do? How can I manage my immediate environment? What are the things I have influence over? That's how I manage, these types of situations. If I spend all the time thinking about all the troublesome things happening around in the world, I become anxious. I become very, exhausted. I feel very worried and all of those. But, I can't do anything about it. So I try to focus, I try to control my environment. I try to focus on my circle of influence. There's a circle of concern, not like I'm not, mindful of that, but I'm focusing on the areas that I can actually do something about, right? And during COVID, I knew that there were sometimes I was no longer watching TV because it was just not comfortable for me to see the numbers rising, nations going to lockdown and all of that. That was me managing my circle of influence, right? Because I couldn't change the numbers, but I can change the kind of information I allow to seep into my mind, and then just own, the healthy state of my mind and as well. Then, of course, the body is also very important. I think I am guilty of this just because we have very busy schedules. We don't have enough time to exercise and all of those, but not to deprioritize it. It's very important. And that's one of my goals going forward into the year, to say no matter how busy you are, we are going to dedicate 30 minutes a day to take care of your body. Because if you're going to live a long and healthy life and actually contributing to the life of others, you need your body to do so. And your body should be in a very, very healthy state. So exercise, of course, and a proper diet very important things to take going forward. So I think these are the things that I know and I've also been able to apply to some extent in my life. And then just also prioritize the need for regular checkups. And then for people that need to take medication for their state of mind, they should also do that as well. Those are important also steps for taking care of yourself, both mentally and physically.
It sounds a lot like the only way you can keep a sane mind is identifying the things you have the power to change. And those things you can't change, just leave them and let them be, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, one of the strategies that worked for me. That's what I think. I can't do anything about Ukraine-Russia war. I'm not a diplomat, but I can keep that out of my face from that affecting me mentally and things like that. We also practice some of those elements in medicine as well. If you are dealing with someone who has maybe a medical issue, God forbid, maybe terminal disease, you also need to show that level of empathy for the person, but you cannot internalize that, otherwise it starts to affect your mental health. So it's showing the right amount, the right emotion in supporting that person, understanding what they are feeling and what they are going through at that time, but not also taking that home, internalizing it so that it starts to affect you personally as a person, because you also have to show up for the next patient the next day.
Indeed. I think this is where I like to hear from Dr. Amma. Dr. Amma is a serial entrepreneur. sharing one of the most
I'm going
effective.
to add to that.
Okay. Please go ahead, Dr. Amma.
So Nifemi, I wanted to add to what I just wanted to add to what she had said, that yes, it is, but I also think that it's important for us to understand the importance of sleep, because if you don't sleep well, you will be triggered much quickly. You will react to the stress and the anxiety and the depression at a greater rate. We don't emphasize sleep enough, and we need to emphasize sleep, but not just sleep where you just close your eyes and say, yes, I'm sleeping, but restful sleep, because that is the state in which the body and the brain repairs itself. It's not news to anybody who knows me or has been on the podcast. I will always emphasize sleep because it is very crucial to our well-being. We can exercise all day long. You can eat the right foods, but if you don't sleep properly, if you don't have adequate sleep, if you don't have restful sleep, you're literally creating a petri dish for illness, whether it's mental, physical, or otherwise. So I will definitely add that to the list of things that have been listed, because we have to make that a priority now. And it's important for us to be aware of what we're ingesting, not just through our mouths, but through our eyes, through our ears. We have to use our senses more. We tend not to use our senses. We've nulled our senses, where we're not paying attention to the sensations that we're receiving. It's all part of neurobiology, and this is not a discussion for neurobiology. But when you begin to understand that what you're feeling, what you're touching, what you're listening to, what you're seeing, what you're breathing is very critical to your well-being, I think many people will stop to think about what they're exposing themselves and their families to, because that is very critical to you living your best life. You can't get around it at all. I do see Peter's hand is up. Peter, did you want to inject here?
Yes, I wanted to just add something real quick. I don't know how many of you saw this video that went viral like a few days ago, where this guy was asked, if you're president of the country, what would you do? And his answer was, did you see it? You're smiling. And he says,
I was going to eat.
Yeah, he's like, president, he couldn't believe it. Then he said he would eat and then lock his door and sleep for 5 days. And it got me thinking, just the basic necessities of life, food and sleep, that is what will make this guy have his best life. So, I mean, the way the world is right now, just that basic food and sleep is like a luxury to so many people. I know people that haven't eaten for 2-3 days. They drink water so they can fill their tummies up. So we're talking about living your best life. Well, what do you tell these people? To them, just that basic food and sleep is all that will make them live their best life. So I think it's just something to think about, because I can't get it out of my mind.
Absolutely. I understand the food part, but I'd like Dr. Amma to speak a little more about the sleep part, because Dr. Amma chairs the British Business Council. The British Business Group. She also provides leadership for Live Abundantly, Allied Empowerment, and Thinking Reimagined. Perhaps you can let us into your routine, because when do you wake up? When do you sleep? What's your daily rituals? Because you make the sleep, when you come here and talk about sleep, you just make it sound so easy, like you can just lay on your bed and sleep. All of us have 24 hours.
There's a difference between
how do you manage yours? Yes.
There's a difference between sleep and resting, because I sleep, but I don't rest. So I'm guilty of that.
Dr. Amma, please tell us. We'd love to know.
Well, I'm going to, you really put me on the spot, Nifemi. Sleep is when you close your eyes and you get into a state of rest. It doesn't necessarily mean you're in that state of rest, because your mind has to get there. Technically, we're also supposed, well, science says, the research says that we should be sleeping 7. It takes the body to get to a state of rest so that the brain can then decompress and the hippocampus can come to work, because you need your hippocampus to be active whilst you're sleeping. It's at that state that your hippocampus is clearing all the debris. It's like the hippocampus is like a vacuum going around and collecting all the debris from the day, the information that you don't need, helping to repair the body, fix the circuitry that needs repair. If you don't go into that deep sleep, you actually are shortening your life. So those who think that they're surviving on 4 or 5 hours of sleep have actually shortened their life. And studies have actually shown that it also affects learning, and it also affects the virility of men. So men, pay attention. The less sleep you have, the lower your fertility. Don't know why I brought that on today, but sleep is critical, and we have to get to that restful sleep. There are times when you can have short naps during the day, and that will help because you're in a rested state. But if you're going to have a rested state in the daytime, it's 90 minutes. It's because of the wavelengths of the brain to get you to that point where you're actually rested. It's very technical, but sleep is very important, and people need to value it. I'm always very concerned about people who go to bed at 4, and I'm guilty of it sometimes. Please, everyone, just know that. They go to bed at 4, they wake up at 6, and then they're in the office by 9 or 10. They're in the office with a full belly. When you go to sleep with a full belly, you're actually telling your brain to focus on your belly, because it has to digest and break down that food to use it. But if you eat and you wait 3 hours to go to bed, then the food is digested, the body begins to repair itself, and you have better night's rest. Otherwise, you wake up with tummy ache, upset stomach, acid reflux. All of those things come from not allowing your body to digest food before going to sleep, lying flat as opposed to sitting up. It's all technical. But I think we need to emphasize sleep, and we don't. And if you sleep better, then you're less stressed, you're less triggered, you're less likely to go to the biases that you call on when you're anxious. Because as you said, the most basic thing for us as human beings is safety, security, and food and sleep. That's about it. Yeah.
Benny, how long do you sleep on a normal day? Is
7
Benny there?
hours.
7 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge.
I don't joke with my sleep because
Keep it up, Benny.
because it's medicine for me. I had to learn the hard way, so it's medicine for me right now.
Okay, so I just want to add to all that we have said about the need to set some healthy boundaries with ourselves. So for the guy who, whenever they hit a big break, they drink to stupor or eat out and damage their body the more. Being an adult means setting boundaries, right? So and that boundary could be as simple as limiting our screen time. So with the advent of phones have literally taken, for instance, now there are people who lay on the bed and they don't sleep for 1 or 2 hours, just scrolling through Instagram. Those are also some of the bad habits that we have to watch out for. Staying out late, drinking, eating in excess, eating out and things like that. But before we go, I'd like us to speak to the need to build meaningful relationships, which personally I think is critical to living our best lives. For instance, if you've had a divorce before, or you've had a breakup with someone who means a lot to you, you can tell how that has impacted on your quality of life. Maybe for a season, it may not have lasted for long, but it depends on how important that person is to you. And I think that it speaks to the need for us to also invest in relationships. Meaningful relationships are very, very key to, our human experience. Just like the time has talked about experience. This 1 hour podcast is what I look forward to. It's, for me, is a pleasant experience. But for everyone who's gone through, a heartbreak, or who's had issues with some very important relationships, will also know that it's not usually a pleasant relationship. Pleasant experience. So can we speak to what we can do going into the new year, nurturing and giving our attention in order to be able to grow meaningful relationships, which is needed for our well-being? Who wants to speak to that?
If I may, can you? All right, am I audible?
Yeah, I think it's better now. Please go ahead.
Am I audible? Okay, so
yes,
you mentioned heartbreak.